This film, entitled My Name, has a female main character named Yoon Jae-woo. She has a father named Yoon Dong-hun who works as a drug dealer. Because of her father's work, Jae-woo is always followed by detectives wherever she goes. Apart from that, even at school, she was always the subject of bullying by his classmates. Jae-woo's suffering increased when there were many reports from parents who were unhappy that their children were associating with the children of drug dealers. Finally, the teacher at the school called her and told her that Jae-woo would be expelled from school. Jae-woo couldn't do much and could only accept this situation. When Jae-woo returned to class, her classmates started bullying her again. Because Jae-woo felt that her life was a mess and was fed up with holding in her anger all this time, she mercilessly retaliated and beat up all the friends who had bullied her all this time. Here we see how Jae-woo takes revenge, and I was very satisfied seeing them beat them up. When she was about to leave the classroom, Jae-woo, who was emotional, immediately handed over her name tag to the teacher there and indicated that he no longer wanted to go to school. When she was leaving school, she saw the detective's car still following her. She immediately kicked their rearview mirror and the detectives chased her. After feeling that she was far away and no longer being chased, Jae-woo stopped at the seaside pier. She also saw a photo of herself and her father and reminisced about their time together. When it was evening, Jae-woo returned to the apartment. There was a bouquet and a box of birthday cake in front of the door, but because Jae-woo was still annoyed, she just kicked it and didn't care too much about it. While she was eating, she got a call from her father. It was the father who told her that he had given her a package for her birthday at the door. Yes, it was a birthday gift from her father. Dong-hun also apologized for not being able to accompany Jae-woo on her special day. But instead of being happy, Jae-woo became even more annoyed. She expressed all her emotions over the phone to her father. Jae-woo also said that she was bullied by her friends and she didn't even have any friends. She also told her father that she had been expelled from school just because of her father's work. Jae-woo also said angrily that she thought her father was dead and would never come back. Hearing that his son's life was ruined, Dong-hun of course couldn't bear it and was afraid of losing his beloved son. He increasingly felt wrong and promised to fix everything. Dong-hun, who was worried about his daughter, decided to go home even though he was being searched by the police. When he arrived there, he immediately beat the detective who had been following his son. After that, when he arrived at the front and tried to open the door, he saw a mysterious person carrying a gun coming towards her. Inside, Jae-woo, who heard the sound from outside, immediately woke up and peeked from inside. Dong-hun, who was cornered, surrendered and just begged the person not to hurt my child. Jae-woo, who heard the commotion, peeked through the keyhole and saw that her father was in danger. She also tried to open the door. Unfortunately, Dong-hun deliberately got in the way of protecting Jae-woo until several shots were heard. Finally, Dong-hun collapsed in front of the door and the person immediately ran away. Seeing her father dying, Jae-woo tried to open the door. In his last seconds, the father took the time to apologize to his daughter and regretted that this all happened because of his fault. Jae-woo, who heard this, became even more panicked and sad. After expressing his feelings, the father finally died. When this happened, Jae-woo was of course very sad because her father hadn't come home for a long time and now she came home only to see her father's death. During the Dong-hun funeral procession, a mafia boss named Choi Moo-jin came with his bodyguards. Moo-jin says that Dong-hun is the person he trusts the most and that Dong-hun is a good father. After the mafia mourners leave, Jae-woo rushes to the mortuary to see her father one last time. For a moment, Jae-woo went back to imagining the beautiful times with her father until she couldn't hold back her tears anymore. After several days, Jae-woo came to the police station to protest why the case of her father's death was being slowed down and covered up. In fact, with sufficient evidence, the case of her father's death is very easy to investigate. However, the police instead blamed her father, who had been a fugitive for a long time. Also said that if her father had surrendered a long time ago, I would still be alive. Jae-woo returned to her apartment and lamented this tragic reality. Suddenly there was a knock on the door from outside. Jae-woo, who was curious, peeked at her through the keyhole. Because she was still imagining the tragedy of her father's murder, she was shocked and afraid when she saw the person who came wearing robes exactly like the person who had killed her father. Jae-woo was confused and afraid, but when the man was gone, she was very sorry because she was only one step away when she could have caught and avenged her father's death. Because of this, Jae-woo took the initiative to make circulars and stick them in all corners of the city using the characteristics she knew. She dared to pay 5 million won to anyone who could find the person who killed her father. Until one night, an unknown number called Jae-woo. The caller said that I knew the whereabouts of the person Jae-woo was looking for. Because I was desperate and felt that there was a bright spot, Jae-woo immediately rushed there carrying a small knife to protect herself. When she arrived at the agreed location, it turned out that she had been lied to because the only people there were teenage thugs who intended to rob him. A fight cannot be avoided, so Jae-woo tries to fight them. The thugs were shocked when they saw that Jae-woo was a woman. Because she was outnumbered, Jae-woo finally fainted. and when Jai-woo realized she was in the trunk of the car with her hands tied, and also heard a commotion from outside which turned out to be Moojin coming to save her. After the fight, Jai-woo, who was safe, was now taken away to the dock. Moojin is curious to find out what Jai-woo wants. Jai-woo, who felt frustrated, said that the police had stopped the investigation and said that her best friend just stood by and watched her father die. Moojin, who saw that Jai-woo was very serious about her father's death, had a plan for her. Moojin says that if she wants to find her father's killer, then she has to learn how to be a killer. Before long, he took Jai-woo to a special martial arts headquarters for his mafia members. Everyone looked surprised because this was the first time there were female members there. One of the youth members named Do Gang-hee also took them to the room where Jai-woo was resting. He looked happy because it meant that his Maknae position, aka errand boy, had now been replaced by Jai-woo. When she was in her room, Jai-woo carefully put it down and looked at her father's ash jug. She also determined that life must be returned with life. Finally, when training time arrived, instead of getting special treatment or being taught, Jai-woo became the center of attention and was bullied by his seniors, all of whom were men with very large bodies. However, Jai-woo, who is used to being treated badly by the people around her, feels like she doesn't care anymore and doesn't give up that easily. Time continued to pass. With strong determination, she continued to practice strengthening herself, and even now Moojin trains and gives her direct direction. Being trained by the mafia boss makes Jai-woo even more determined to kill. With the shadow of her father's killer, Jai-woo continues to train to become strong and invincible, until the day of the test arrived for all of them. They can participate in brutal fights where only one participant wins. When everyone was ready in the arena, they immediately started the match watched by Moojin and his subordinates. The results of Jai-woo's training also showed progress because Jai-woo's fighting skills had improved so rapidly and she was agile in facing her competitors who were all big and all male. Finally, Do Gang-hee and Jai-woo, the two youngest members, joined there. The battle is getting fiercer because there is only one winner who will stand in this fight. They also show their best abilities which will determine who is the best. And the winner will get a week's holiday as a prize and will get 10 million won. After a long time of mutual attacks, Jai-woo finally gave a crushing blow and caused Do Gang-hee to faint on the ground. Seeing that the match was over, Moojin came to declare that Jai-woo was the winner. Because he lost a match with a woman, Go Dong-hee was bullied by one of his roommates. Meanwhile, Jai-woo is seen busy cleaning the floor in the former practice room which is splattered with the blood of all the participants. When saw Do Gang-hee passing by, Jai-woo tried to apologize. As if nothing had happened, Do Gang-hee answered very kindly. But, when I returned to the room, I told my friend I had a plan for Jai-woo. One of his friends reminded him to stop thinking because Jai-woo was here on the recommendation of Big Boss Moojin. And if he dares to touch Jai-woo, then he will just have to deal with Moojin, who of course will be terrible. On the other hand, Jai-woo drinks the water in the bottle which turns out to have been mixed with anesthetic by Do Gang-hee. After drinking it, he suddenly became staggered. And not long after, one of his seniors arrived with Dong-hee who had been waiting for the right time to try to rape Jai-woo. However, Jai-woo did not remain silent. She fought with all her remaining strength even though she was affected by the drug. She was not afraid until this incident accidentally caused her father's ashes to fall and break. Seeing this, Jai-woo became very angry and immediately realized the effects of the drug. Meanwhile, Dong-hee is just enjoying the epic performance between his friend and Jai-woo. Jai-woo, who was emotional, tried to hold onto the broken jug and managed to stab Mr. The long-haired man was covered in blood and made her hysterical. Seeing his friend injured, Dong-hee also becomes angry and intends to finish off Jai-woo. However, Jai-woo doesn't give up that easily. Jai-woo managed to get out and even with the last of her strength she managed to injure Dong-hee until Moojin's men came and stopped the fight. Because of the chaos created by Do Gang-hee, I also had to face Moojin. In front of his boss, Dong-hee tries to apologize and says he just wants to teach Jai-woo a lesson. However, as we know that Jai-woo is Moojin's golden child and she is here on his orders, Moojin is very angry that someone dared to bother me. Moojin then asked Do Gang-hee to choose which part of the body to take out his samurai sword. Seeing that Do Gang-hee did not regret his actions, Moojin became even more angry and slashed Do Gang-hee's face. Meanwhile, back in Jai-woo's room, she looks very sad to see that her father's ash jar has been destroyed. The soul's cry was heard by young Tae-ju, who is Moojin's trusted assistant. Tae-ju tells Jai-woo to just give up because this is his last chance to leave there. Tae-ju also thinks that Jai-woo's arrival has made the organization chaotic and has lost his valuable subordinate, Do Gang-hee. However, Jai-woo, who has improved positively and feels like she has a zest for life after entering here, has made up her mind and refuses to give up. Firmly, Jai-woo says it's too late to stop. Afterward, Jai-woo is seen visiting Moojin at a restaurant. Moojin also said that he often went to this place with her father Dong-hun. He also said that today, Yoon Jae-woo had died and had prepared a new identity and name for her, namely Oh Hae-jin, and she had to use it from today onwards. Not only that, Moo-jin also said that her father's killer was a police officer. Moo-jin also handed over the gun found at the time of Jae-woo's father's death and said that it was a gun belonging to the police. Then, Jae-woo was given the task of smuggling into the police and finding out about the case of her father's death for revenge. And from here on, Jae-woo will change her name to Hae-jin to match the plot of this film. At their headquarters, Tae-ju informs them that Do Gang-e has been kicked out of the organization for trying to kill Jae-woo. As the years passed, Hae-jin trained very hard to become a member of the police. And now, Hae-jin is also very skilled at using various weapons. There is also a bird tattoo on your chest which also indicates that you have officially joined as a member of Moo-jin. Also remembered the message from his organization which said that his life now belonged to the Moo-jin organization and if betrayed, he would be killed. With policewoman-style hair, now Hae-jin is getting older and she has also succeeded in becoming a police officer in the violent crimes section. Hae-jin is now a police officer who is obedient in carrying out her duties. She is also on an important mission. This time, his task is to catch a drug kingpin who operates in a night bar. However, in the middle of the operation, she found a girl who had overdosed on drugs. Even so, the good side of Hae-jin's heart remains and she still saves the girl before continuing her mission again. While catching the criminals one by one, Hae-jin peeked through the dark window in the room. She also saw illegal transactions taking place inside. Without hesitation, Hae-jin immediately broke the glass there with a chair, then snuck in and stopped the activity. She immediately beat the criminal with a set of weapons. However, there was one man who caught his attention. The man looked very calm amid the chaos, even taking part in giving lessons to the drug dealers. There was a small argument between them and it turned out that the man was also a member of the police, namely Jeon Pil-do. He is also a detective who has long posed as a drug dealer to infiltrate the organization. The meeting between Hae-jin and Pil-do opens a new storyline in this film. Initially, both of them had different intentions in bringing certain people before the law. However, Pil-do immediately became angry because Hae-jin was thought to have disrupted the plans she had laid out neatly over the last 6 months. Because of this, there was tension between the two, and finally, Hae-jin decided to leave Pil-do. Elsewhere, Choi Moo-jin and his mafia members are teaching his business partners a lesson. This is because, after 10 years of working together, my partner betrayed me. However, as we know, Moo-jin is famous for sadism and barbarity. I was seen putting his partner into a car filled with billowing smoke. Of course, his partner will die slowly. On the other hand, yesterday's success in the operation to arrest a drug dealer led Hae-jin to face her team leader, namely the head of the drug detective team, Cha Gi-ho. When she first met the team leader, Hae-jin immediately remembered the face of her father's killer. This adds to Hae-jin's increasingly strong determination to avenge her father's death. Meanwhile, Moo-jin was waiting for her at a place by the sea. Hae-jin said that currently she is getting closer to her father's killer and is finding out more about who owns the gun. Then Moo-jin said that this place was a witness to where Hae-jin's father tried to save Moo-jin's life in the past. Seen in a flashback of Dong-hun fighting to save Moo-jin and ending with a group photo. Then, Moo-jin gave his knife to Hae-jin and said that if I found the killer he promised that the organization would protect me. Long story short, on the other hand, Jeon Pil-do is in the interrogation room to deepen his investigation. There she found new information about a new suspect named Mango. After receiving the information, she left the interrogation room to call her superior. However, I saw on the other side Hae-jin who was entering their room. Pil immediately approached and asked what he was doing there. It turns out that Hae-jin was appointed by team leader Cha Gi-ho as a new colleague from the drug department and was there in the same room as me. Jeon Pil-do feels reluctant to get a new partner, especially since she is a woman, namely Hae-jin, because according to me it would be a burden while on duty. Shortly after that, Cha Gi-ho received news that someone had died in the car. So Gi-ho began to suspect that soon Moo-jin would make his move. Elsewhere, Moo-jin is approached by his secretary and gets an order of 50 billion won. Then Moo-jin said she wanted to drink the chamomile, even though previously she didn't like it when Jae-woo gave it to me. After that, Tae-ju approached and asked whether Moo-jin still believed in Jae-woo, who had joined the drug police. Tae-ju says that he doesn't believe it anymore, but Moo-jin says he still believes in Jae-woo's desperation and agrees with Tae-ju that if Jae-woo betrays them then they will immediately kill them. Meanwhile, to prove Hae-jin's ability, she was invited to arrest someone named Mango earlier. Arriving at the predetermined location, Hae-jin was assigned to go inside by herself and Pil-do just waited in the car. Hae-jin, who already has a steel mentality, doesn't seem afraid to go in there alone. But as soon as she entered, she was greeted by a very strong guard there. Then Hae-jin has to face it first. After successfully disabling the guards one by one, Hae-jin was finally able to enter the bar. Outside, Pildu feels that Hae-jin is taking too long to give the news and decides to go in there too. When I arrived at the entrance, my colleagues were a little confused when they saw the guards there lying on the floor. They couldn't believe that the one who beat them all was Hae-jin. When they arrived inside, saw Hae-jin who was beating up the dealers there one by one. After Pildu went deeper into the bar, he saw Hae-jin locking Mango's hand. Pildu, who came with the other police, immediately searched the bar and interrogated everything. Pildu then asks Hae-jin to let go of Mango's hand. He says Hae-jin has big guts but can't interrogate. Then Pildu continued to ask where Mango hid the illegal drug. Mango avoids it if he doesn't have anything. Then Hae-jin saw Mango's eyes glancing at the employee as if telling him to hide something. With instinct, Hae-jin immediately checked and crushed the bottle containing illicit drugs in the form of pills. Next, in the basement, Pildu said that he only told Hae-jin to take the Mango out and not beat everyone up. However, it seems like Hae-jin did this to show Pildu her abilities. After that, Pildu also advised that in the future, don't do that again because Hae-jin could get hurt. Looks like Pildu is starting to get interested in Hae-jin. When he arrived at the police station, Mango was examined and interrogated to find out where he got the drug. But Mango didn't want to tell him because the owner of the drug was a very cruel person. Hearing this, Hae-jin seemed afraid that Mango would mention Mu-jin's name. In a bar, a man in a white wing jacket is seen presenting a new type of drug, where the drugs are the same drugs that Mango has. The man explained that the new type of drug would not be detected even if it was consumed, and calls it a gift from God and makes people who eat it not be afraid of anything and will become superheroes. But of course, the presence of this new type of drug will make Mu-jin unhappy because the drug supply that has been monopolized so far has competition. And it turns out that the man in the white jacket is Du Gang-yi, who was dumped by Mu-jin. He was ready to take revenge. In the car, Hae-jin reports about Mango's arrest to Mu-jin and asks where Mango got the drugs from. However, Hae-jin still does not know because it is still in research. Arriving at the police station, Hae-jin finally got access to the drug system. This is the opportunity I have been waiting for. Without thinking, she immediately looked for a film about her father, Dong-hun. There, the information obtained was that an unknown man in a black jacket was seen entering the apartment, and Tae-ju was the one who was with my father at the last location before he died. Hae-jin looked very seriously at every detail of the case. Not long after, team leader Cha Gi-ho came and surprised me. Meanwhile, at headquarters, Mu-jin is discussing this new type of drug with Tae-ju. Said it seemed like a new dealer appeared after Mu-jin's drug delivery was delayed for 3 weeks because he killed Mr. Beek who took care of the previous order. At that time he got an SMS from his secretary about a buyer from Japan who would pay after his order was ready. Then Mu-jin decided to go straight to the field to check my drug production. Meanwhile, Mu-jin's secretary, Kang Soo-yeon, is holding negotiations with buyers from Japan. It can be seen that the Japanese grandfather agreed to carry out the transaction because the drugs provided were perfect. Soo-yeon explains that the drug is called Diamond, which contains 99.99% methamphetamine. The billionaire asked for an agreement to provide the drug within 10 days. Before leaving for the police station, Hae-jin brought the gun that Mu-jin had given her, which was filled with bullets. Upon arrival at the police station, Hae-jin looked surprised to see her colleague who was relaxed and did not continue interrogating the Mango. However, suddenly one of the people there reported that the target was moving. Without thinking, Cha Gi-ho immediately ordered an ambush operation. They all got ready. Hae-jin was given a gun, but it wasn't only Hae-jin's team that moved, there was also a lot of help from other teams. When gathered in the meeting room, all officers' cell phones were also confiscated before carrying out the operation. And how surprised Hae-jin was because the target of the operation this time turned out to be Choi Mu-jin. Then Cha Gi-ho explained that Mu-jin was the biggest dealer who produced almost 90% of crystal methamphetamine in Korea. Mu-jin's intermediary is Bi Young-oh, the head of a shipping firm who committed suicide a few days ago. And Mr. Beek's ship has now arrived from Thailand 2 days ago. And now Mu-jin is the one who has taken over the factory. It was clear that the police were targeting Mu-jin because they installed cameras at the hotel that Mu-jin owned. So they know Mu-jin's every move. Hae-jin looked very confused because she couldn't warn Mu-jin. In the car, Hae-jin tried to take the cell phone several times but never succeeded. Meanwhile, Mu-jin and his subordinates have almost arrived at the port location. He left by boat and the police were also ready in their respective positions to carry out an ambush. When Mu-jin arrived at the ship and inspected the crystal methamphetamine manufacturing laboratory, the police started to enter and take down the mafia on guard one by one. They are also equipped with cameras ready to be used as evidence of an ambush. Then Mu-jin was there without knowing what was going on because he was still focused on checking the production of crystal methamphetamine. From above, Hae-jin saw Mu-jin, but there was nothing he could do to tell the young man. Meanwhile, Pildu is suddenly attacked by the mafia who know his whereabouts, so the camera that the pill was carrying broke the screen. Hae-jin deliberately let Pildu first. When the Pildu went inside, it immediately attacked Mujin. However, because the camera attached to the chest was damaged, they were unable to capture Mujin's face to use as evidence. And suddenly someone shot and the lights went out. Mujin took the opportunity to rush out and destroy the laboratory to destroy the evidence. Mujin and Tijo managed to escape by jumping into the water. Police who examined the ship ultimately did not find any evidence because everything was burnt. Even the camera that Pildu was carrying couldn't capture Mujin's face. However, Haijin found a gun that had fallen, but the code number on the gun was scratched off, so she didn't know who the owner was. Meanwhile, at his headquarters, Mujin is angry because how can his organization not know about the police's movements? Tiju questions why Jaiwoo didn't tell them. In front of the police station, Haijin, who is worried, tries to contact Mujin. However, Mujin didn't pick up my call. Meanwhile, at the police station, Pildu tried to interrogate the crew but did not get any information from the men. Cha-gi-ho also started to suspect his team members, then check each team member's gun to see whose bullets are missing. Haijin, who was worried, tried to calm down and luckily Haijin still had her bullets intact. Next, Haijin asked Pildu whether the previous Park Chango-dan Mango operation was just a trap. Pildu then explained that their target was Mujin, whom they had been after for more than 5 years. The surgery before that was done to catch Mujin off guard. Haijin looks surprised to see that on the photo board of their operation, there is Jaiwoo's father, Dong-hun. Dong-hun is Mujin's best friend who has died. But until now they don't know who the killer is. Not long after, the police chief came and scolded Cha-gi-ho. At the restaurant, Haijin finds out that Gi-ho is obsessed with Mujin because a team member died while chasing Mujin. Then, Haijin stole the opportunity to call Mujin and said that everything was sudden and my cell phone was confiscated. Then asked if you were okay. Haijin also provided information about the cameras installed in Mujin's hotel, and now Mujin realizes that there is a traitor in his organization. Then, Haijin admitted that I was the one who shot the ship. During the ambush, he deliberately used the gun that Mujin gave him and left it at the location. I did that so that the police could check the owner of the gun and find out who was the person who killed my father. At his base, Mujin begins to find all the cameras that have been lurking. The police panicked knowing they had been discovered. In his room, Cha-gi-ho looked at his team and became increasingly suspicious. Then, Cha-gi-ho went with a file to the National Forensic Agency office, and without him realizing it, Haijin had followed from behind. At a bar, Du Gang-yi and his members are using drugs, and everyone was ready to go somewhere they had been planning for 5 years. It turns out that Du Gang-yi and his members went to the training base of Mujin's organization. Without further ado, they cut down everyone in that place without mercy. Tiju, who was shocked by Gang-yi's arrival, tried to fight back. In the middle, Gang-yi fights and tells everyone to stop. Gang-yi sadistically slashes Tiju's member's neck right in front of his eyes. Because he didn't want all his members to be killed, Tiju surrendered. Gang-yi vents his heartache. He won't kill Tiju but tells Tiju to choose which part of his body to cut. With a psycho face, Gang-yi cuts Tiju's arm with a knife. On the other hand, Haijin, who was stalking Cha-gi-ho, got a call to go to the sports center in Dongcheon. Of course, I was surprised to hear the name of the place. Meanwhile, the National Forensic Agency has succeeded in revealing the owner of the pistol, a GL6575 series made in Brazil. Of course, this sheds light on who owns the gun. Haijin, who arrived at the location, was very surprised to see the injured Tiju being interrogated by Gi-ho, who asked who the perpetrator was. But Tiju chose to remain silent and didn't say anything. Inside the training ground, Haijin saw the floor that said "I'm back." Then Pildu came and said 3 people were dead and 1 person was critical. Haijin, who was worried, immediately let it slip and asked whether Mujin was dead. Pildu also said that Mujin was not there. Meanwhile, at the office, Mujin looks concerned and holds back his anger at seeing his organization being destroyed. I watched the footage of the massacre of its members. Mujin also orders the secretary to cover everyone's mouths from the police. Meanwhile, the police team did not find any footage from the cameras at the gym. Even so, Haijin and Pildu find a clue. They saw traces of pills or drugs that were the same as those of Mango. Haijin and Pildu try to find evidence by asking victims and witnesses. But the results were nil and they didn't get any information. After that, Pildu asked Haijin to continue looking for information, because I got an emergency call. As soon as Pildu left, Haijin looked at her cell phone and asked about Mujin's condition, but there was no answer from him. Because there was no news, Haijin went to see Mujin from afar, who was at his member's funeral. And coincidentally, Cha-gi-ho and Pildu also came to that place. Luckily, Haijin quickly put on a helmet so the 2 of them didn't get caught. Cha-gi-ho forced his way in to meet Mujin. Of course, Mujin didn't greet him very kindly because he saw Cha-gi-ho openly approaching him like that. They both argue with each other. Mujin makes sure Cha-gi-ho will never catch him. Meanwhile, Du Gangyi and his members are celebrating their victory because they have succeeded in killing several Mujin members. However, they are a little annoyed because they haven't gotten customers for the new type of drug they are selling. At the police station, Hai-jin twirls her thumbs waiting for the forensic report on the firearm that killed my father first. Then one of the drug police teams managed to get a tip about Du Gangyi. Hai-jin immediately recognized who the person was. They now realize that you are responsible for yesterday's incident. Cha Gi-ho now understands that this is his chance to catch Mujin. He is sure that Mujin will immediately move and avenge Gangyi because he knows very well that Mujin has very high self-esteem. Then Cha Gi-ho decided to release Mango to see Mujin's movements. Hai-jin believes that this plan will cause the two gangs to clash and more lives will be lost. But it seems that Cha Gi-ho doesn't care about the deaths of the delinquents. Hai-jin then sent a message and told Mujin that Mango would be released to trap him. Mujin just laughed at reading the message from Hai-jin, because it seems like Mujin is starting to calm down when facing Cha Gi-ho. He cancels the plan to attack Gangyi. Seeing Jin's mood not moving, the drug police looked surprised. However, Cha Gi-ho looked calm because he was sure that someone from the Mujin organization would turn around and take their side. Hearing that statement of course made Hai-jin shocked, especially since Gi-ho said that I would meet that person. At the office, Mujin plans to seize a new type of drug produced by Gangyi to meet customer demand because currently, the crystal methamphetamine has stopped production due to the factory being destroyed. After that, at the bar, Tae-ju meets the customers and asks them to patiently wait for the medicine, while threatening them all if they switch to another seller. Of course, their lives are at stake. As soon as he entered the car, Tae-ju received a letter and a sample of a new type of drug from who knows who. At the edge of the highway, Cha Gi-ho was seen waiting for someone on his motorbike. Hai-jin followed and watched from afar and someone photographed their movements from the top of the building. And it turns out that Tae-ju's car stops right near Cha Gi-ho. Hai-jin immediately ran to the top of the building, across the street to see Gi-ho from afar. But it turns out it was all a trap. Their Pil-du was waiting for Hai-jin in the building. Luckily Hai-jin was wearing a helmet so my face couldn't be seen and they exchanged punches. With all her strength, Hai-jin tried to escape from Pil-du. When running away on the motorbike, Hai-jin saw Tae-ju, who was near Cha Gi-ho, laughing sarcastically at the suspected spy's motorbike. At the top of the building, Cha Gi-ho and Pil-du begin to suspect that Hai-jin is Mujin's spy, because their operations often leaked after Hai-jin joined. Cha Gi-ho asks Pil-du to keep an eye on Hai-jin's movements. At home, Hai-jin, in pain, calls Mujin and says that Tae-ju might be a traitor to the organization, but asked Mujin not to take action yet. As soon as Tae-ju arrived, Mujin, still angry, continued to look at Tae-ju without blinking. He doesn't seem to believe that Tae-ju betrayed him. It turns out that Tae-ju was framed too. In his car, he saw a message on paper that said someone would tell him Gangyi's position. He didn't expect the letter to be from Cha Gi-ho. That's why, when he was on the highway, Tae-ju only stopped for a moment and immediately left when he found out the letter was from him. Later at the police station, Cha Gi-ho starts looking at Hai-jin's file and reading all of her family background. It says Hai-jin's father died due to the influence of drugs. The next day, Hai-jin prepared to go to the police station carrying the knife that Mujin had given her, and now starting to look for information about the gun to the National Forensic Agency. After finding out the name of the owner of the gun, Hai-jin immediately asked Gi-ho who Song Jun-soo was who had the gun while preparing to attack Cha Gi-ho with his knife. It turns out that Song Jong-soo was a member of Cha Gi-ho's team who died 4 years ago while scouting Mujin's Dongcheon organization on the riverbank. Hai-jin or Jai-woo meets Mujin. It seems that they are starting to doubt that the owner of the gun was killed by Dongcheon's organization. However, Mujin claims that Gi-ho is currently trapping him, said that his organization had never killed a police officer. Meanwhile, at his bar, Mango is being beaten up by Gangyi because they cannot afford to pay for the medicine he has been given. On the other hand, at the police station, Hai-jin is busy looking for information about the owner of the gun, Song Jun-soo. Pil-du seemed to be trying to talk, but Hai-jin said that I already had an appointment and hurried to leave. Without realizing it, Hai-jin and Pil-du followed from behind. As soon as we arrived at the basement, Pil-du immediately got into the car and immediately asked what you were doing. Hai-jin said that I was following Mango because the police let him go. It seems like Pil-du is worried about Hai-jin who moves alone. That's why Pil-du choose to help. They then followed Mango's car from behind. Meanwhile, at a soju shop that Mujin often visits, he is seen going to the shop alone without a bodyguard. On the other hand, Pil-du and Hai-jin follow Mango to a factory that is no longer operating. Don't forget to ask your teammates to check the location. They sneaked into the building and watched Mango from above. Pil-du now seems to trust Hai-jin and thinks Hai-jin did all this because her father died because of drugs. This was known from the file he read at the police station. Back at the shop, Mujin noticed something strange. then told the grandmother who owned the shop to go out to buy cigarettes. As soon as grandma left, Moo-jin immediately beat up everyone in the shop who turned out to be all members of Gang Yi's gang. Meanwhile, at the factory, it turns out that Gang Yi and Mango have trapped Hae-jin and Pildu, and without them realizing it, Gang Yi members were ready to beat them both up and a fight broke out. On the other hand, at the Saju shop, Moo-jin manages to defeat all the members of Gang Yi, but Hae-jin and Pildu are successfully paralyzed. Pildu fainted because he was thrown from the top of the building. Then we are shown a flashback when Gang Yi finds out that Hae-jin is the Jaiwoo I knew when I saw the CCTV footage at Mango's bar. Gang Yi was determined to target Jaiwoo from that moment on. And now, Hae-jin and Pildu are trapped in a car that Gang Yi has prepared to destroy. Gang Yi, who has a personal grudge against Hae-jin, takes all his targets out on Hae-jin. But instead of being afraid, Hae-jin challenges Gang Yi to a duel again. And then Gang Yi stabbed Hae-jin in the leg. After a vicious stab, Gang Yi turned the knife and confronted Hae-jin. Then Gang Yi called his subordinate who turned out to be picked up by Moo-jin. Gang Yi happily took a photo of Hae-jin and sent it to Moo-jin and told Moo-jin to come quickly before he could only see Hae-jin or Jaiwoo's corpse. As seen, Moo-jin, who had been stabbed in the stomach, was not in good condition, but he still drives to save Jaiwoo. Meanwhile, Pildu and Hae-jin have been handcuffed in a car and put in a crusher. Both of their panics became even worse when the car wrecker moved. With time running out, Hae-jin managed to sneak out of the car, but not with Pildu because Pildu's hands were still handcuffed and still trapped in the car. While he was panicking, luckily Moo-jin arrived there on time. He immediately crashed his car into the control machine used to stop the crushing machine. They were all safe. Hae-jin was a little surprised by Moo-jin's chaotic arrival, but at that moment the police siren sounded. Hae-jin also managed to save Pildu before it was too late, and Moo-jin managed to leave before the police arrived. When Captain Cha-gi-ho and the others arrived, they started to see the black car hitting the engine controls and started to get suspicious. Injured Moo-jin manages to return to his base. Tae-ju looks unhappy knowing that Moo-jin sacrificed himself to save Hae-jin. But Moo-jin gets emotional and challenges Tae-ju because he remembers what Hae-jin said, saying that Tae-ju might be a traitor to the organization. Moo-jin also asked what he had done to make himself trustworthy, and Tae-ju can only silently apologize. At the hospital, Pildu talks about his trustworthiness as he decides to trust his partner Hae-jin completely. He even shouted at Cha-gi-ho and asked him to immediately arrest Gang Yi, who almost killed his colleague. Hae-jin also underwent surgery and was lying in hospital. Because a request for pills like that certainly made Captain Cha-gi-ho confused, he had to talk to his superiors, and his superior ordered him to look for Gang Yi first. A big plan was carried out by the drug control team, because they are now assigned to carry a gun and look for Gang Yi. He interrogates his subordinate Gang Yi and tries to find out Gang Yi's whereabouts. Now the Moo-jin organization and the drug officers are both determined to get Gang Yi first. The police team is currently deploying a large number of troops to search for Gang Yi. They were ordered to go to places such as bars and search CCTV. Because Gang Yi was hard to find, Mango was ambushed by Pildu to make it easier for them to find Gang Yi. At the same time, Tae-ju increases his efforts to find Gang Yi. He interrogated Gang Yi's subordinates, but because his subordinates did not refuse to answer, he was killed immediately. Due to the lack of information about Gang Yi, Tae-ju went to the nearest bar location. Seeing Tae-ju's efforts to find Gang Yi, so Moo-jin melted and invited him to eat together. He also told Tae-ju to just wait for the movement of the drug officers, because it was certain that if Gang Yi was cornered, he would appear by himself. When Hae-jin woke up, she saw Do's pills there, and he talked about his little sister. It turns out that Pildu's younger sister also died because of drugs. This happened because someone put drugs on his younger sister, so that made her die. This explains why he is so adamant about doing the right thing in narcotics cases. He doesn't know who is responsible, but he is determined to catch as many drug dealers as possible and bring them to justice. Pildu also knows about Hae-jin's past from her file at the police station, and because of that, Pildu remains determined to help Hae-jin. Furthermore, Pildu and Hae-jin's relationship gets closer. Pildu even took Hae-jin home and invited her to eat with a team of drug officers. But without them realizing it, Tae-ju is stalking Hae-jin. He took a photo and sent it to Moo-jin and told him that Hae-jin was still alive. Later at his office, Moo-jin decides to give Hae-jin a ticket to leave the country and leave the police force. This is because it is very dangerous if Gang Yi is caught and reveals Hae-jin's identity. However, Hae-jin did not agree. She refused because her goal had not yet been achieved. Moo-jin was angry and asked Hae-jin to follow his instructions and leave Korea. On the other hand, Captain Cha-gi-ho increases his efforts to find evidence that Hae-jin or Jaiwoo is Moo-jin's spy. And he also assigned his subordinates to tap Hae-jin's phone for all incoming and outgoing calls. And Hae-jin's location will be monitored from now on. Next, at the police station, Hae-jin met the police who used to stalk her when she was still at school. The policeman's name was Sergeant Cho. In front of the others, he admitted that he recognized Detective Hae-jin when he was in the Violent Crimes Department. But Hae-jin wasn't so sure. Then in the room, Cha Gi-ho and Sergeant Cho described Jae-woo, Dong-hun's daughter, and how she disappeared at that time. Sergeant Cho remains silent about the truth he knows about Cha Gi-ho. Meanwhile, while Moo-jin is looking for a house for Jae-woo, Tae-ju reports to Moo-jin that Sergeant Cho has now met Cha Gi-ho. At the police station, when Hae-jin met him outside the building, he quickly recognized that Jae-woo was Hae-jin, Dong-hun's daughter. He also said that the Dong-hun murder case was closed by Captain Cha Gi-ho. Meanwhile, Sergeant Cho went to the pier and asked Moo-jin about what he was doing with Hae-jin. He scoffs and says that Moo-jin is a devil. Sergeant Cho has also been a spy all this time because he is also an addict. Because Sergeant Cho kept babbling and wanted to reveal Hae-jin's true identity, Jae-woo, Sergeant Cho tried to blackmail Moo-jin by asking him for drugs. But now Moo-jin is sure that he must silence Sergeant Cho forever because it is certain that Sergeant Cho will be an obstacle to them in the future. This time Sergeant Cho was killed and thrown into the water. As the film continues, a massive manhunt is launched to try and find Gang Yi by broadcasting advertisements everywhere. Pil-do and his colleagues now capture Gang Yi's subordinates. He also told them to call Gang Yi right away and ask where he was. Then, Hae-jin took the initiative to come over to Mango to ask where Gang Yi was. Mango also refuses to give information, but Hae-jin threatens to tell Moo-jin that Mango was one of the perpetrators of the attack yesterday. Hearing this made Mango afraid and made him mentally affected, and finally, he revealed Gang Yi's plan. In her home, Hae-jin calls and tells Moo-jin that Gang Yi escaped by a boat overseas. It's just that before he ran away, Gang Yi called Captain Cha Gi-ho and decided to give them information. He knows the police want to arrest Moo-jin, so he wants freedom in return. Back to Moo-jin, who finally decided to step in and brush do Gang Yi himself. Tae-ju tries to prevent it because it's probably just a trap. But here, Moo-jin emphasizes that he believes in Hae-jin because he tried to save her. Finally, Tae-ju couldn't say anything anymore. Then Moo-jin forbade Tae-ju to join in the brawl with him, because Moo-jin still hopes that Tae-ju can manage his business if something bad happens to him. It turns out that Moo-jin shows his friendship even though his trust in Tae-ju is starting to wane, but Tae-ju is still the most trusted person in his organization. Then comes the day of the meeting between gangster Gang Yi and gangster Moo-jin. According to Gang Yi's information to Captain Cha Gi-ho, the police were also ready there to arrest Moo-jin and Gang Yi. Meanwhile, Gang Yi, who had been waiting at the port, then Moo-jin and the others appeared. These two gangs look very busy. However, without them realizing it, they were surrounded by police officers. This operation was led directly by Captain Cha Gi-ho, and a fight between these two gangs ensued. As you can see, from this fight, Moo-jin's gang is superior. Seeing the increasingly chaotic situation, Gang Yi chose to run away. Moo-jin saw this. Immediately, Moo-jin chased him. And at the same time, Captain Cha Gi-ho saw the two of them chasing each other. After seeing Moo-jin and Gang Yi separated from their gang, Captain Cha Gi-ho ordered them all to go in and arrest Moo-jin and Gang Yi's men. Meanwhile, Captain Cha Gi-ho followed the two of them upstairs. Now, Gang Yi moves away and takes Moo-jin to a place above the construction hanging up there. Meanwhile, Hae-jin finally arrived and didn't realize the sudden operation. She appeared and went towards where Moo-jin and Gang Yi were fighting. Pil-do, who saw that Hae-jin was already ahead of him, of course, made Pil-do speed up his running to catch up with Hae-jin. Up there, Hae-jin tries to save Moo-jin, and without Hae-jin realizing it, Pil-do also followed her from behind. In their fierce fight, finally, Gang Yi stabbed Moo-jin many times until Moo-jin was seriously injured. But before carrying out the final fatal attack, Hae-jin blocked him with gunfire and pointed his gun at Gang Yi. Moo-jin took this opportunity to escape. And now Gang Yi, who is cornered, is trying to provoke Hae-jin's anger by threatening to reveal everything to the police so that Hae-jin's cover will be exposed. This made Hae-jin angry, and of course, Hae-jin shot her gun at Gang Yi and made him fall to the ground. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Pil-do witnessed Hae-jin's action of shooting Gang Yi. Meanwhile, Moo-jin, who was cornered at gunpoint by Cha Gi-ho, finally managed to escape thanks to Tae-ju, who arrived on time. Furthermore, Moo-jin, who is still alive, managed to survive after being helped to escape earlier by Tae-ju. He stopped in a place quite far from police surveillance. Then Tae-ju lowered it and gave him a cell phone that was safe from tapping. Tae-ju also gave Moo-jin a gun complete with bullets just in case. As seen, Moo-jin's ultimate goal is to go to the temple on the mountainside, and he was treated by a monk there. During treatment, Moo-jin was reminded of his sadistic days when he was in the organization. Meanwhile, Hae-jin is currently not in good condition, because her act of shooting Gang Yi was her first murder and made her suffer from anxiety. Hae-jin is haunted by the shadow of Gang Yi and feelings of guilt after the killing. Then Pildu, who knows Hyejin's condition, now tries to go to her house and share a drink. Pildu went into Hyejin's house, but he was a little surprised because there was nothing in Hyejin's house. They told each other. Hyejin explained that in the past, Gang Yi tried to rape her by putting drugs in her drink. Pildu finally understands why Hyejin is so emotional about Gang Yi. That's not only Hyejin's reason, but she's afraid that Gang Yi will blow her cover. Then Pildu tried to cheer up Hyejin because he knew Hyejin shouldn't be alone and motivated her to find some hobbies to make her life happier, and invite her to see the sea another time. At the temple, when he woke up, Mujin immediately got up and looked for the monk. They greeted each other. It seemed like they already knew each other. The monk told Mujin to rest and stay for several days. Later at the police station, Captain Cha and his team are discussing Mujin's escape route. Captain Cha assumed that Mujin would have to treat his wounds, so he definitely wouldn't be able to be far from the places he appointed. In the morning, Hyejin received an envelope package from Gang Yi. It seemed that Gang Yi had sent the letter before he was about to escape by ship yesterday. The envelope contained a photo of a police officer. Where is Hyejin's father in the photo? It's just that in the photo Hyejin's father uses the song named Junsu. Of course, this made Hyejin wonder. Hyejin was determined to find out the truth, and she went to the temple where Mujin was recuperating. Hyejin asks about the truth about the photos Gang Yi sent. There, Mujin explained and confirmed that Dong Hun, Hyejin's father, was a police officer, but he preferred to betray the police and change his loyalty to the Mujin organization as explained by Mujin previously. As we remember, Mujin once said that Hyejin's father, Dong Hun, had saved Mujin's life. Hyejin also believes in Mujin. She also understood why her father had been living on the edge and couldn't contact her. Mujin reassures Hyejin that her father is dedicated to life and death as a member of the organization. This makes Hyejin wonder why Mujin didn't tell her from the start. Mujin also reasoned that all this was because he wanted Hyejin to have confidence and find out for herself who killed her father. This was a lesson he had tried to instill in her all this time. According to Mujin, Captain Cha Gi-ho was the one who killed his father because he couldn't accept Dong Hun's betrayal. Meanwhile, Pildu remains determined to find and stop Mujin whatever happens. The Pildu arrived at the temple where Mujin was hiding, but the monk was not honest and protected Mujin. The monk said that no one would go to the temple in winter. After looking around for a while, he finally decided to leave. Then, Pildu met Captain Cha Gi-ho, who was drinking soju. Captain Cha expressed his frustration because he couldn't find a bright spot. Pildu also convinces Captain Cha that one day they will be able to catch him. After Hyejin's arrival, Mujin began to doubt Hyejin's ability to pull the trigger and kill Cha Gi-ho. Then he even assigned Tiju to kill the police captain. Of course, Tiju will do that. Hyejin is now also preparing to go to Captain Cha's house. Then, Pildu took Captain Cha back to his house. On the way home, Pildu almost ran into Hyejin, but he didn't realize it. It didn't take long. Tiju finally appeared at Cha Gi-ho's apartment that night and stabbed him multiple times. However, Cha Gi-ho was able to retaliate by stabbing Tiju with a broken bottle. Tiju quickly tried to escape and sneak away from that place just as Hyejin appeared at Cha Gi-ho's apartment. Cha Gi-ho still entered using his bare hands to get inside even though he saw blood on the doorknob and was still determined to find out the truth. Seeing someone coming in, Captain Cha opened fire as soon as Hyejin was inside. However, the shot missed him. Pildu, who heard the gunshots, was nearby and immediately returned to Cha Gi-ho's room. Captain Cha thought Hyejin was the one who stabbed him, but Hyejin immediately asked why he killed her father. And finally, Captain Cha now knows the fact that Hyejin is Jai-woo, Dong Hun's daughter. Captain Cha, who was dying, weakly took an envelope and gave it to Hyejin. Just then, the dew pill appeared. When he breaks in, Hyejin escapes out the window and back into her car. And finally, the truth about Hyejin's father began to be revealed. In her car, Hyejin starts reading every article that is in the envelope that Cha Gi-ho gave her. Then we are shown a flashback of how Jai-woo's father was caught by Mujin. Hyejin, or Jai-woo's father, is an undercover policeman and gives Mujin a gold lighter. Unbeknownst to Mujin, the lighter has a tracking device in it. The tracking device was discovered perhaps accidentally after using it to beat one of his subordinates in the office when the tracking device was thrown on the floor. Mujin was angry and realized that there was a traitor in his organization. To make matters worse, Mujin also found a typewriter and many reports were sent back to the police. At that point, Mujin finally finds out that Dong Hun is a police officer. From all these stories, it can be concluded that before his death, Jai-woo's father was a policeman who was still loyal to the Korean police. Cha Gi-ho even has the last letter from his father, which reinforces the fact that Jai-woo's father was a police officer. In the letter, Dong Hun's final goodbye was written to his daughter Jai-woo. Jai-woo was frustrated with the truth that was revealed. Jai Woo now finds herself in despair and shaken by what she has done so far in vain and feels lied to. All this time, Jai Woo lived side by side with her father's killer without her realizing it, namely Cho Moo-jin. The person she always wanted to protect and trust turned out to be the person who hurt and betrayed her the most. She even stopped the car because she was having a panic attack. After the panic attack had subsided somewhat, she was determined to get rid of the organizational marks that Moo-jin had given her. Jai Woo also took a lighter from the car to remove the tattoo on her chest. When Jai Woo wanted to kill Cha Gi-ho, she instead gave all of her father's evidence files as proof that Jai Woo's father was not part of the organization, but he was from a drug officer who at that time was undercover to dismantle Moo-jin's organization. After Jai Woo read all of her father's files and found out who her father was, Jai Woo went to the hospital to find out what condition Cha Gi-ho was in. Pil-do also tells Jai Woo that Captain Cha has been in surgery for more than 4 hours. Then Pil-do said that after he took Cha Gi-ho home and he was on his way back, he heard a gunshot which he identified as a shot from Cha Gi-ho. Then Pil-do assumed and was sure that Moo-jin was involved in this action. But without Pil-do realizing it, Jai Woo already knows what happened to Cha Gi-ho. However, Jai Woo just chose to remain silent because Jai Woo didn't want Pil-do to be suspicious of him. Then, while chatting, Pil-do was called by a police officer who told him that there was no CCTV footage of Gi-ho's stabbing incident. And then simultaneously the nurses took Gi-ho to another room because Gi-ho's operation went smoothly and Gi-ho's life was saved. And because Gi-ho was still saved, Tae-ju called Moo-jin and told him that Gi-ho was still safe. And he also didn't forget to say that in the stabbing incident, Jai Woo was there. And because Jai Woo already knew everything, Tae-ju ordered Moo-jin to kill Jai Woo before Jai Woo acted first, because Jai Woo felt that she had been used and lied to by Moo-jin about killing her father. Then because Jai Woo already knew that Moo-jin was using her, Jai Woo decided to get out of the assets given by Moo-jin. Then when she finished packing her things and wanted to leave, Jai Woo was suddenly ambushed by Tae-ju's subordinates who came to kill Jai Woo. There was a little fight in the toilet between Jai Woo versus 3 bodyguards. Even though it was a bit difficult, Jai Woo managed to make a comeback so we can be sure that Jai Woo will be stronger. After defeating the 3 men, this time Jai Woo had to meet Tae-ju. At that time, Tae-ju also said that it was Moo-jin who killed Jai Woo's father, because Moo-jin wanted to see the expression of a traitor's death. After saying this, the two of them fought again fiercely, until finally Jai Woo managed to paralyze Tae-ju. Then when Tae-ju couldn't move, Jai Woo immediately stabbed him until Tae-ju died. On the other hand, narcotics officers already know the location where Moo-jin is self-medicating. When the drug enforcement team wanted to leave for the location they had determined, they were surprised by the arrival of Moo-jin, who came to surrender himself to the police. Jai Woo, who had finished slaughtering Tae-ju with his men, also received a message from Pil-do about Moo-jin surrendering himself to the police. Moo-jin's surrender like that certainly made Pil-do confused by Moo-jin's actions, because Pil-do saw Moo-jin's actions when Moo-jin was stabbed by Gang Yi 3 days ago. Due to the criminal acts committed by Moo-jin and his organization, Moo-jin is not afraid of going to prison and being punished, but Moo-jin looks relaxed when being interrogated. He opposed the pill. Not long after, Jai Woo arrived there. Then she entered the interrogation room and interrogated Moo-jin. Jai Woo tries to stay calm and not lose control to prevent her true identity from being revealed. Jai Woo interrogates Moo-jin with several intimidating questions about Moo-jin's insider who was sent to the drug department. Jai Woo questions her loyalty to Moo-jin but is betrayed and lied to by Moo-jin. Because Jai Woo's question was quite internal to Moo-jin's organizational problems, he chose to remain silent and not say anything. When Jai Woo left, Pil-do followed Jai Woo because of the question about Moo-jin's spy who was in the drug department. Jai Woo managed to lie and Pil-do believed it. Then the drug enforcement team managed to get CCTV information from a car that ran away when the police came to the scene where Cha Gi-ho was stabbed. And because every car has a number plate, the two of them immediately looked for the number plate of the car that was suspected of being the perpetrator of Gi-ho's stabbing. At the same time, Jai Woo entered the evidence room. She then took the knife that Moo-jin used when Moo-jin killed Gang Yi. Then because the perpetrator's car number plate was fake, his drug teammates paid attention to the police team's vehicle data. He also got a number plate that matched the data of the police and that of Hyjin alias Jai Woo. Meanwhile, when Jai Woo managed to get Moo-jin's evidence, she came out and immediately contacted Moo-jin that the knife or evidence that might have been used to kill Gang Yi had been taken by Jai Woo. At the same time, the entire drug squad team is looking for Jai Woo because his car plate is the same as the CCTV information near the complex. Jai Woo went out via the emergency stairs and luckily she managed to get out of there. Meanwhile, Moo-jin himself was sent home because he found out that the knife used as evidence had been taken by Jai Woo. Long story short, while on the way, Moo-jin got a telephone call. And then the scene shifts to Tae-ju, who is seen lying stiff with a knife stuck in his chest. The knife was the knife that Mu Jin gave to Jai-woo so that it was certain that Tae-ju had died in Jai-woo's hands. And of course, Jai-woo's next target is to kill Mu Jin. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Pil-do, who is depressed because Jai-woo lied to the entire narcotics unit team, also makes observations again at the scene of Cha Gi-ho's crime. While investigating the crime scene, he got a call from his friend and his friend said that Jai-woo's real identity was all fake. Because they knew that Oh Hai-jin, whom they had known, had been using a fake identity, they went to Jai-woo's house, which no longer had any items there. However, Pil-do, who had previously come to Jai-woo's house, had seen Jai-woo's late father put in a cupboard. However, seeing that the urn of ashes was gone, Pil-do immediately went to a burial place, because Pil-do thinks Jai-woo is there. And sure enough, he met Jai-woo there and there was a chase that ended with Jai-woo being caught because she fell off her motorbike. Then Pil-do, who didn't know the real problem, immediately took Jai-woo on charges of obstructing justice and attempted murder as legal charges against Jai-woo. After they arrived at the police station, one of the drug squad wanted to beat Jai-woo because she had betrayed them all. Meanwhile, we move on to Mu Jin, who knows that Jai-woo has been arrested by the police. He also ordered his men to find a way to free Jai-woo from the capture. However, this is quite impossible to do because Jai-woo has committed a big lie within the police department. Pil-do was emotional with Jai-woo. He came to Jai-woo and told Jai-woo to tell everything honestly. However, when Jai-woo says the truth, Pil-do still won't believe what Jai-woo says, because Jai-woo has lied to them all before. When she arrived in the interrogation room, the most surprising question was who she was. Then we continue with the rest of the last episode. After Pil-do catches Jai-woo because of her actions of lying to them, then after being caught and interrogated, Jai-woo still doesn't want to tell Pil-do her real name. Then Mu Jin, who knew that he couldn't get Jai-woo out of police custody, conveyed a message to his assistant who was going to go meet Jai-woo. The next day and at the same time, Cha Gi-ho finally managed to recover from his critical period after receiving very serious medical treatment. So you can be sure that if Gi-ho is aware, everything about Jai-woo will be revealed later. Then the next day, Mu Jin's assistant came to see Jai-woo where he delivered Mu Jin's message, the message of which stated that Mu Jin would not let Jai-woo go to prison. This was so that Jai-woo could come to Mu Jin, of course. Then he asked the police there to take Jai-woo to the hospital because the wound on Jai-woo's arm was quite serious. They tried to refuse the offer, but Mu Jin's assistant threatened that he would contact journalists that the police, especially the narcotics unit, had spies from the Dongcheon organization because they were threatened like that, they couldn't do anything, and then immediately took them. Jai-woo goes to the hospital under very tight guard. And when Jai-woo left, Mu Jin's assistant contacted Mu Jin and told Mu Jin the latest information. Then Mu Jin sent his troops to bring Jai-woo before him. Long story short, when she arrived at the hospital, Jai-woo was put in the medical room while the police were waiting in front of the door, and at the same time, the hospital received a call about Captain Cha Gi-ho who had regained consciousness. Then Pil-do immediately rushed to meet Jai-woo. Meanwhile, when Jai-woo was in the process of stitching up the wound, it turned out that the nurse's assistant was a woman whom Jai-woo had helped in the early episodes, and this woman was told to give Jai-woo the car keys so that Jai-woo could escape from the hospital. When Jai-woo's wound had been cleaned and stitched up, she rushed out of the hospital, but when she wanted to escape, the police who were outside came in and then a fight broke out between them which Jai-woo himself could win. Meanwhile, on the other hand, when Pil-do met Captain Cha Gi-ho, he said that they had detained Jai-woo because they thought that Jai-woo was the one who had stabbed their captain. Finally, Captain Cha Gi-ho told him everything about who Jai-woo was and that the one who stabbed him at that time was not Jai-woo but Tae-ju, Mu Jin's subordinate. Then Captain Cha Gi-ho revealed Jai-woo's true identity. Captain Cha Gi-ho starts the story with Jai-woo's father, Song Jeon-sung, who was a police officer who died for more than a month when he joined the drug squad. It was revealed that his death was faked by Captain Cha Gi-ho because Song Joon was given the task of disguising himself and entering Mu Jin's organization, namely Dongcheon, and changing his name to Yoon Dong-hun. And because he still wants to catch Mu Jin, Dong-hun still joins Mu Jin's organization even though he is a police officer. After finding out Jai-woo's real identity from Captain Cha Gi-ho and knowing that all this time, Jai-woo was being used by Mu Jin. But when Pil-do wanted to go back to meet Jai-woo, Pil-do was called by his colleague, and his colleague said that Jai-woo had run away. Then Pil-do immediately rushed to the parking lot. Next, he meets Jai-woo and tries to stop the car. He then called Jai-woo by Jai-woo's real name, namely Song Jai-woo. And after the Pil calling Jai-woo's real name stopped, Pil-do also restrains Jai-woo's movements and says that he knows everything about Jai-woo from Captain Cha Gi-ho, which of course even Pil-do tries to restrain Jai-woo from killing Mu Jin. Because according to him, revenge is not the best way to release Jai-woo's guilt toward her father. However, Jai-woo remains determined to take revenge on the person who killed her father at that time. And because Jai Woo was still fighting, Pildu finally handcuffed himself to Jai Woo. At the same time, the Dongchen troops came who wanted to take Jai Woo until finally there was a short fight which was won by the duet between Jai Woo and Pildu. After defeating the enemy and trying to escape, a chase ensued between them and the Dongchen troops. And again the two of them managed to escape by breaking through a traffic light which made their enemies also break through the traffic light. However, due to imprecise driving skills, their enemy ended up having a series of collisions. This caused their cars to roll over on the road. Because they couldn't bring Jai Woo to Mujin, they contacted Mujin and told him the information about Jai Woo being helped by Pildu, a detective from the drug department. Then we are taken to Jai Woo and Pildu who go to hide in a beach house belonging to Pildu's friend. When they got there, Pildu saw that Jai Woo's hands were bleeding. He immediately told Jai Woo to take off her jacket. And then the pills treat Jai Woo's wounds. While Jai Woo was undergoing treatment, Pildu also gave himself advice that revenge would not end everything or be a way out, but would only make Jai Woo suffer because she was pressured by the desire for revenge. It turns out that Pildu's advice can melt Jai Woo's heart and make him win Jai Woo's heart. And Jai Woo was very involved in giving her valuables to Pildu. Then, together with Jai Woo, Pildu tries to change Jai Woo's mind about wanting to kill Mujin by saying that there is no need to take revenge on Mujin because Jai Woo's father also went undercover and entered Mujin's organization just to catch Mujin, and hopes to be able to bring Mujin towards government law without having to kill Mujin, the head of the Dongchen organization. And of course, with such a long period, Jai Woo's father didn't even want to kill Mujin just because he wanted to bring Mujin to justice. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Mujin looks very frustrated because two of his trusted people have died. Even Jai Woo's father, whom Mujin believes to be his confidant, lied to Mujin until Mujin finally decided to kill him because Mujin hated traitors. Because the situation was no longer under control and the Dongchen organization's management was starting to collapse internally, a financial assistant told him to run away now. However, because he was confused and frustrated, Mujin told him to go and leave the organization. He also took a gun to shoot if the woman didn't want to leave Dongchen's organization. Long story short, the next day when Pildu woke up he saw that Jai Woo was no longer by his side. He rushed out because he was afraid that Jai Woo would run away again. But it turned out that Jai Woo had woken up before him and was enjoying the beach atmosphere in the morning. Then Pildu, who had thought that Jai Woo would run away, Jai Woo reassured Pildu that he wasn't going anywhere and wanted to take responsibility for all his actions. Pildu also feels calm and will help Jai Woo when he explains everything that happened to him related to Mujin. When they were on their way to the police station, they stopped at a traffic light, but suddenly a mysterious man approached their car. The man fired a shot from close range which directly penetrated Pildu's head. Of course, Pildu's death made Jai Woo very sad and very emotional because the man she had just loved was killed next to her. Jai Woo also suspects that it is Mujin. Because Jai Woo's revenge is now unstoppable, she rushes to Mujin's office. When we got there, Jai Woo forced her way in and then there was a 1vs100 fight, or we don't know how many bodyguards Mujin had inside. After escaping the initial stage of the fight easily, Jai Woo went up to the top floor in the elevator where Mujin saw Jai Woo's arrival via CCTV, and then Jai Woo destroys the CCTV. When he arrived at the top floor, Jai Woo again had to face Mujin's men, whom she defeated easily, of course. However, it is different from this man, where Jai Woo is difficult for her to fight. But in the end, Jai Woo was overcome with a gun bullet which managed to kill the man. After successfully defeating all of Mujin's guards, Jai Woo finally entered Mujin's room. Jai Woo, who already has a huge grudge against Mujin, questions why he killed someone precious to her again. However, Mujin remained relaxed and already knew that this day would happen. Because he wants to play fair, Jai Woo only uses a knife to fight Mujin. And the fight began. Even though he was cornered at the start, because of Jai Woo's hatred and revenge for Mujin, Jai Woo still put up a defensive fight which was quite fruitful. Mujin also managed to be hit by Jai Woo's knife cuts on several parts of Mujin's body. But it wasn't just Mujin who got a knife cut, Jai Woo also got a knife cut. Jai Woo is even worse than Mujin. Finally, when Jai Woo was slumped, she found the right opening to return Mujin's stab which hit Mujin's vital point. Because he felt like he was almost defeated, he took and used Jai Woo's gun. He also wanted to use the gun to kill Jai Woo, but because the gun didn't have bullets at the same time, Jai Woo stabbed Mujin in the neck until he died and it was game over. After killing Mujin and his members, Jai Woo came out staggering. This film closes with Jai Woo arriving at her father's grave and placing a photo of police clothes with her father.